Okay, Ali, the talk is, the floor is all yours, please. You can start. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tobias, and
Yeah.
good afternoon, everyone, for being here with us. I'm very pleased to be here as well. As you can see, my talk is mostly about the water crisis that the desert Southwest is facing and some potential and applied tools and strategies to mitigate this issue in the region. Let me start with, Let me start with a brief tour of low desert of California. As you might know, the low desert of California is a major water use and production region in the Southwest. We have three major valleys, very productive valleys, with about 700,000 acre ag production area. The region has a true desert environment with about 3 inches annual rain. Sometimes this rain, it comes just in 2 events. Thanks to Colorado River, we have one of the inexpensive ag water in California. And Colorado River is the major water source we have. But also it is facing some water constraint currently. There is a competition for water between ag, two big cities of San Diego and LA, and the environment of Salton Sea. We also have some water quality issues in the Salton Sea. A couple of more important things we need to know about the desert. The desert has a very diverse cropping system and crop rotation. Sometimes this causes some issues on adopting new irrigation technologies. The region is a major alfalfa and grass production region, not just in California, in the US, and a source of winter vegetable supply to the US. We have 3 water and irrigation districts in this region, but one of them is the largest IID, or Imperial Irrigation District, is the largest well-developed irrigation and drainage district in the US. Lake Mead is the water storage for the region. When we look at the water elevation over the last 85 years, we see some variation over these years. But the main issue started in 2000, when a drought started and continued over the more than last 2 decades. Since 2015, 2020, the water level was around normal condition. But in 2020, it started to decline and fall down to the water shortage era. This is the prediction the Bureau of Reclamation just released last month. Thanks to the wet weather we had during winter, the Bureau decided to release more water, about 1 million acre feet to the Lake Mead. And as a result, the water level started to rise up. Currently, we are in the level 1 water shortage in this lake, still below the normal condition. But this estimation shows, the prediction shows over the next 2 years, by summer 2025, probably we can maintain the water level in that level 1 of water shortage, which is a good news. But the water authorities and the region has interest to do some water conservation practices to make sure during the next 2 years, they can bring up the water level to normal condition, which is a more sustainable situation in the region. There is currently an agreement between the Imperial Irrigation District and the regional water authorities here. Based on these, the Imperial Valley needs to conserve about 300,000 acre feet for San Diego County and also in Coachella Valley Water District over the next 3 years by 2026. But what I said about the water conservation now we need is on the top of this. So the most acceptable proposal is for the region to conserve about 1 million acre-feet annually over the next 3 years. With the region, I mean the lower basin of Colorado River needs to conserve about 1 million acre-feet, which more than half a million comes to California contribution. It means the low desert needs to conserve about 500,000 acre-feet over the next 3 years annually. And this is something new to the region. It's kind of a big cut to the region. And we need to develop new water conservation capacity more than ever we have. That's the concern of the region now. And every authority and growers at the regional level, they are working together to develop that higher capacity. We did this survey in 2020. It demonstrates the water conservation practices already adopted in the Imperial Valley as the main water user in the region. As we can see, our growers already adopted many different water conservation practices. On the top of them, surface irrigation optimization, which is land leveling, conventional sprinkler irrigation system and irrigation scheduling technology, and followed by drip irrigation and some other practices. As I mentioned, growers already adopted, but we found the trend of adaptation is slower than we expect. And that's, I think, the main issue here. And I think the next 3 years is a good opportunity for the region to accelerate adopting some of these new water conservation practices in the region. When we look at alfalfa, alfalfa is a major crop we have and a major water user, not just for the low desert. Alfalfa alone acreage is about 1/4 of the irrigated acreage, the entire Colorado River, which is a big portion. It uses about 37% of all water is used in the Colorado River basin. For us in California, over the last decade, harvested acreage of alfalfa started to decline by 50%. At the same time, we see 12% increase in the acreage of alfalfa in the desert. It means our growers had this crop. They will have it in the future and stand for it. This is my evaluation. So alfalfa stand a big crop and a water user in this region. Even this year, compared to last August 2023, we see 10% increase in alfalfa acreage in Imperial Valley, and we are in the middle of water crisis. As I mentioned, growers stand for it. Even they increased 4% Bermuda grass, 12% Klein grass, which are our perennial crop. And when we see this increase, it means we see it over the next 4-5 years because they are perennial crop, not annual. Sudan grass is an annual crop. Our growers used to plant it after our vegetables, after winter vegetables. But there is something I think that's good news here. Our growers started since 2019 to reduce the acreage for Sudan grass. Even this year, they reduced 50% acreage. Our estimation is Sudan grass eliminating from the summer crops can reduce water applications and conserve about 100,000 acre-feet for the region. I believe our growers and also the water authorities see eliminating Sudan grass as a potential water conservation in the region and can contribute. When we look at the combined 10 crop acreage in Imperial Valley over the last 3 decades, we see a lot of fluctuations. And these 10 crops are the crops they have highest acreage in the region. There was a fallowing program stopped in 2017. And since then, the combined acreage of this crop started continuously to increase. And this year we had in the highest acreage, which means fallowing is one of the solutions. You know, if we want to reduce water demand, so we need to think always about fallowing. But our growers don't like fallowing because they think fallowing is not ag. and that's why they don't like it. But it still is one of the solutions. We don't have it in Imperial, but we still have it in the Palo Verde Valley as a water conservation solution. Alternative low water use crops is another solution, but it was not successful over the last decade. Just two examples, sunflowers and olives we started years ago, but growers didn't adopt these two crops as low water use crops. Optimal cropping pattern is a good solution. Growers believe at this moment they have the optimal cropping pattern. But from this perspective, optimal cropping pattern means more economic benefits. I think we need to change this perspective and add water demand as also a driver. We need to integrate water demand and economic benefits to our optimal cropping pattern. And I think it will be sustainable cropping pattern for the future. I think we need to revise this optimal. When it comes to water demand at the beginning and first of everything, we need to make sure we know the water demands of our crops. So over time, we see some changes in the cropping system, in irrigation, soil management practices, new varieties. And it means we really need over time to update crop water use information. One of the projects we did in the last 5 years is to update the crop water use information and crop coefficient for the cropping system we have in the desert. As you know, everything in the desert is different. We use eddy covariance and surface renewal to develop this information. Just one example to show you, to demonstrate how various practices we have in the desert, even for one commodity. Let's talk about lettuce. So we have lettuce under different irrigation system, drip, surface, and sprinkler irrigation. We have in different plant density, in soil type, and time of year planting. All those variables can create some various practices. And as a result, the resource use management will be different, even for one commodity. And so please take it for every crop we have here, more than 100 different commodities here. So one of the crops we have here is date palm. The desert region leads date production in the US. We never updated crop coefficient for date palm. We worked with 6 commercial date palm in the last 4 years, and we developed this crop coefficient, which are the regional crop coefficients based on different conditions or date palm have. And we are working on the guideline, irrigation guideline for our growers to help them to make sure, because date palm also is a very high value use crop in this region. And this information can help the region and growers to do a better job with the estimation and irrigation management for this crop. One of our biggest crops I already mentioned is alfalfa. We work with 10 commercial fields, different soil type, different irrigation system, which represent the cropping system in the desert. This is the cumulative actual crop water use or ET, actual ET we developed for this field. Very interesting. We found about 7 inches differences in actual ET between this crop. Part of that coming from the irrigation methods and the management of growers do and soil types. They applied even more variable, about 20 inches differences in water applied between these growers' field. And that's just grower practice. It's not deficit or something. That's the real practice. And as a result, we see 2.8 ton per acre yield differences. This is huge between these fields based on those practices. Alfalfa is a very interesting crop. We see very variable daily alfalfa ET and crop coefficient, even in the harvest cycles and yearly basis. Every cut, after each cut, alfalfa crop coefficient goes to a minimum value, and then just in 2 weeks goes to a high value after canopy goes to a full canopy. And we see some seasonality even in the crop coefficient values over time. Based on that, we thought it's good for our growers and the region to develop average harvest cycle crop coefficient values for our region, which is more applicable for our growers. So we developed this. It shows what is the value for each harvest cycle. We have about 8 to 9 harvest cycles for alfalfa. So our growers can use this for a better irrigation management and estimation in their field. Very interesting data we have here, why we have less crop coefficient in the late season. This measurement, NDVI measurement, shows the NDVI values change over time. Even during summer, the NDVI values goes down. After harvest, the NDVI, you see the crop cannot regrow as fast as before. And if you go with a certain days of harvest cycle, you definitely have less crop coefficient and lower NDVI, average NDVI values for that cycle. We learned 70 to 72% of the total desert alfalfa production is obtained by mid-July. And the water productivity of alfalfa field is averagely about 40% less during the summertime. Which means if you want to do some deficit irrigation practices, the summertime is the best time to do some water deficit for alfalfa. But the question is, which kind of deficit irrigation? We already know deficit irrigation, summer deficit irrigation is a feasible water conservation. But the question is severe or moderate summer deficit irrigation. With severe, I mean we cut irrigation even the entire summer for 3 months. With the moderate summer deficit irrigation, I mean we just eliminate some of those irrigation even, 2 or 3 irrigation even, because we are talking about the desert. The key driver to optimize deficit irrigation in the desert is not only yield loss. We are not talking about Sacramento Valley. If you go with a severe deficit irrigation, you might lose plant stand. You have soil water, you have severe soil water depletion. You have salt accumulation. You have some negative impact on hay quality. And who wants to compensate for those issues? So that's why we need to evaluate this. And we, over the last 4 years, we work on this issue to find what is the optimal deficit irrigation practices in the desert. This is a sandy soil moisture in growers field, and also a trial we did deficit irrigation, but moderate deficit irrigation. We eliminated 2 deficit irrigation. One thing I would like to mention here, irrigation management in this sandy soil is not that easy. This data shows even our growers occasionally do some deficit irrigation for their regular practices. When we do deficit irrigation, we add some basically some water tension to the crop. But the good thing with the moderate deficit irrigation is, so please look at this part. At the end of season, when we stop deficit irrigation, summer deficit irrigation, the soil water depletion is not that high. So it means growers can just continue their regular practice. They don't need excessive water to compensate for the soil water depletion. I think this is the main advantage, because the mother nature doesn't help us. We cannot refill soil profile. We cannot leach down the salt accumulated over the summer. So this data also shows with eliminating 2 to 3 irrigation even during summer, we can conserve up to 1 acre-feet per acre, which is a great amount. But we also will lose up to 0.6 ton per acre, which is not significant. When we go with the severe deficit irrigation, basically we eliminate the entire irrigation even during the summertime. We will lose up to 2 tons per acre, but we can conserve about 0.9 to 2.2 acre-feet per acre, which is also significant. But we might, depending, which circumstances that field has, we might lose some plant stand. We need part of that water conserved for refilling the soil profile and leach down the salt accumulated on the top soil. So it's not all water conservation. Still, we believe the optimal water deficit irrigation is the moderate deficit irrigation. But the region, the irrigation district, and it seems growers, they like severe deficit irrigation as a practice for the next 3 years. But of course, someone needs to compensate for that yield loss, and it seems the federal government, should be supportive for that. So severe deficit irrigation or moderate deficit irrigation is one solution we see for the next couple of years. It's not a viable solution, but it still is a solution for the next years. Our data shows the EC of tailwater in Imperial Valley averagely is about 3 decimal per meter. We still can reuse that water without any treatment for irrigation. For alfalfa, for Bermuda grass, for other grasses, for sugar beet, we can use that. So portable tailwater recovery system is an adopted system, and growers continue with this system as well. We have averagely, we have about 7 to 13% of the applied water as tailwater, which means it's significant, and growers can reuse that water. Automated surface irrigation is another practices. Basically, our growers use advanced sensing station and automated gate to manage a variable flow rate during the irrigation event, and as a result, reduce the runoff in the irrigation event. So we did this study a couple of years ago to evaluate how this system might work. In one irrigation event, the growers was able to reduce the tailwater percentage to 4.2%, which is very significant. And it came from 12% to 4%, which is significant. During the 6th irrigation event we did this evaluation, we found the irrigation efficiency is about 86%, which is we expect from the pressurized system in a commercial level. I think it can help our growers in the future. Subsurface drip irrigation is always a solution. We always think about this. Our growers adopted for alfalfa as a big crop. But we learned from growers, they increased their yield by 25%. It's about 2.4 tons per acre. Mostly comes from the first 2 years after implementing this system. They also reported about 1 acre-feet per acre less water applied. It might be lower than we expect, but this is alfalfa. We accumulate some salt. Growers, they need to integrate different irrigation system to make sure they apply more water during winter time to manage the salinity. So 1 acre-feet per acre is a real number they can consider. There is some salinity challenge, but is manageable. Economically, subsurface drip for alfalfa is feasible, specifically with the high value of hay now. But still, the gopher strike remains the major issue, and our growers walked away, some of them, from this technology only because of this gopher issue. Some of our growers, they think drip irrigation for alfalfa is a hassle. They don't like it just because they cannot manage their system. I think the industry needs to work to help growers with this issue. Sugar beet is another crop. A couple of growers adopted. Our data shows promises in terms of conserving water. One grower reported in one of those years we worked 1.7 acre-feet per acre, which is very significant. 19% yield increase, again significant. Another game changer here. We found about 250% less root rots in the drip irrigated sugar beet field. Root rot is a disease or growers they have always in the furrow irrigated sugar beet, but I think drip can be very useful to help that disease. When it comes to economic feasibility, I think the issue comes up exactly in this part. because we are talking about not a value, high value crop. Sugar beet is not a high value crop. We have higher costs for drip for sugar, even higher energy costs, because we are moving through furrow to drip irrigated. This data shows growers cannot even reduce the labor costs for irrigation management because they are using portable drip irrigation. And still, here, labor always is during the irrigation event for the adjustment. So none of those growers reported labor cost reduction because of the drip. And at the end of the season, we see $630 per year higher cost for drip irrigation compared to furrow irrigation. And if that's the case, we need about 13 tons per acre higher yield to compensate for that. The highest increase of yield we found is 10 tons per acre. It means from growers' perspective, subsurface drip is not a viable technology for sugar beet. But I think we need still to work on the management side to do a better job with the fertilizer management, with the labor costs, and hopefully maybe in the future, a better management. When it comes to vegetable crops, the story is different. They are high value crops. And everything we do for vegetable crops might be economically feasible. So we did this evaluation with 15 commercial fields. Obviously, the data shows promises for drip irrigation. We found about 2.2 acre-feet per acre water conservation. And I need to mention this, all these 15 fields were they had sandy soil, which it makes sense. You know, growers, they need to apply a lot of water when they go with the furrow irrigation. The growers conserve 26% fertilizer. Very interestingly, they increased 5% marketable yield in the drip irrigation system. They did all the conservation, but still they increased the yield. We found the key advantage of drip for sweet corn is the better soil moisture distribution uniformity over time and space. This is very important. Two different things, not just over space, over time. When we look at this soil moisture data, it clearly shows what's going on. We always think growers with furrow irrigation, they over irrigate. Yes, that's right, but not always. You obviously see here, just 3 weeks before harvest, grower did some depth irrigation with the furrow irrigated sweet corn field. And it might have some impacts for the yield reduction because that time was the most critical time for irrigation management in this field. Or growers adopted drip irrigation for onions. They use different irrigation. About 4 to 5% of our onion fields are under drip irrigation. This is our best estimation. We evaluated this to understand how drip can work for water conservation. Again, you obviously see the differences, very significant differences. So onion is a long season crop, sometimes goes to 9 months. If we have furrow irrigation and it goes to May, June, and July for irrigating, you need to apply a lot of water with furrow, but not with the drip. And other promises for using drip in onions, we observed a higher nitrogen use efficiency, about 60% in drip irrigated field compared to furrow irrigation. So, and other benefits, then the nitrate concentration in the furrow irrigated field was always higher on the topsoil the entire season. And one issue we found in the furrow irrigated, even growers left the field with a lot of nitrate concentration on the topsoil. We do not recommend these. We always recommend to growers leave the field with the lowest level of nitrate concentration because we have heavy leaching during summer. If we leave that amount of nitrogen, we will lose it definitely. But salinity as an issue, because we are talking about desert, we have different soil type. Part of the field we see salinity issue, the other part we don't see it. When we look at the soil salinity or EC within the soil profile, we obviously see salt accumulation on the topsoil. And I believe that's the drip contribution here. Because we compare this with the furrow irrigated field just next to that field, and the field has also drainage issue. Still, we see a higher EC in the topsoil with the drip, not in the furrow irrigation. Salinity is not just an issue for a sensitive crop like onion, even for very high tolerant crop like date palm. We observe a very high salinity in date palm. The salinity threshold for date palm is 10 decibels per meter. We found in some date palm, this measure goes to higher 20 decibels per meter. What we see here is salt, is not snow. And I took this picture just 3 years ago in a date palm 3 miles away from the Salton Sea. The most effective tools or growers they have for salinity management is leaching. They don't have the optimal leaching, but still that's the only tools I think they have. We did this study during summer for 6 different commercial fields to see how effective is leaching. You obviously see how effective was leaching and bring down the EC from 10 decibels per meter to about 1.5 or 2 decibels per meter. I think if we use drip irrigation and we don't do a good leaching, we are just losing yield the following year and productivity. This is my concern for the future. We are all talking about water conservation and no one talks about salinity, and the issue will come to the desert. I think salinity will be most likely more challenging for the desert in the future. And the reason for that is when we go with the lower allocation of water for our fields, we say to the growers, you have 4-acre field, do whatever you want, produce crop or use everything for leaching. So our growers start over time to just use it for production. Now our growers, they think about every other year's leaching or every 2 years leaching. I think if we go with that, we might lose some yield productivity over time, because the losing land productivity comes in a very silent mode, and it's happening. We have this experience in the Middle East, and I think that's my concern for the next future. So let's just talk about this field. One onion field, 2 parts of the field. One salt affected, the other part not. We see about 20% yield difference between these 2 parts of the field. I cannot verify all those that 20% comes from the salinity, but a major part of that yield reduction comes from salinity, and we are still working on this issue. Even though we have a very well-developed drainage system in the desert, we have more than 1,400 mile surface drainage system, and much more miles of tiles in the system, and it works hell. It works perfect most of the time. But we also learned the maintenance of the drainage system is an issue. We found some issue in some field. The tiles doesn't work well. So there is a grower in the desert. I'm working with him. He has a collection. Every time he did some maintenance, he found some objects in his tiles, and he put in this collection. I took the picture. I believe one of these objects is enough to clog part of the tile system and create salinity issue over time in that part of the field. And we see it right now in some of the fields, and maybe more in the future. I think our growers need more support and encouragement for maintaining their drainage system. But everything is not about the having more efficient irrigation system or technology. Management is the key tool of efficiency enhancement. So let's look at what happened here. This is from a grower who adopted drip irrigation for iceberg lettuce in the sandy soil. So we evaluated crop manage tool in this field, what crop manage says and recommend, and what growers did in drip irrigation. So we obviously see growers applied more than 230% more water in this field than what crop manage recommend, and 300% more nitrogen application than what recommendation comes from the crop manage. It means even our growers, some growers who adopted drip irrigation or the other technologies, high efficient technologies, they are not using the optimal use of this technology. We are working with these growers to show them how you need to improve this use. Another field, onion field. This is the water applied during just one irrigation event in onion field. Onion is one of the short rooted crops. Growers run 24 hours irrigation, drip irrigation, and applied 1.7 inches of water, and did during 5 different irrigation events. So I'm not sure really it's efficient management in this field. So we definitely need a better management even in the high efficient system. But our growers need also some encouragement, and we have it for them to adopt this technology like drip irrigation, not just water or fertilizer. So drip irrigation can also help in the disease and water treatment management. What we learned from the spinach trial, it shows downy mildew, which is a very constructive disease for the industry, can be managed by using subsurface drip irrigation. We learned from the trials we had over 3 years, the downy mildew incidence can be reduced by 2 to 5 times compared to sprinkler irrigation. Growers who adopted drip irrigation for spinach, they reported $300 less per acre less operational cost for water treatment to do food safety and downy mildew control, which is very significant. I think that's the game changer for our growers, and we need to emphasize those encouragement to growers. So another trial we had with onion, I don't have that the scientific data, but non-scientific data comes from growers. The fungicide application expenses shows the growers' perspective, how they see drip irrigation compared to the other. These growers reported less fungicides per drip compared to a sprinkler in onion field, 87% less expense, which is very significant, I think, from growers' perspective. They believe already it can help them with the disease management. So another encouragement, I think that's very important for the leafy green vegetables, because they are very short season crops. It doesn't make sense to growers to germinate crop first with the sprinkler and then convert to drip. So we did this evaluation to make sure how effectively can a drip play here role for germination of these crops. So this evaluation shows the result we have for the spinach. Spinach is one of the highest plant density we have. We have about 3 million seeds per acre. So if we can germinate spinach by drip irrigation, we can germinate every other crops if we go with the good drip tape depth. So this data shows there is no significant plant population differences between drip germinated field and sprinkler germinated field, which is, I think that's very also significant and game changer to our growers. I think I need to stop here with my thank you to you all for watching or being here with us today. And my special thanks goes to many people, all the cooperating growers who allowed my team to enter to their farm. They provided some numbers. All the UC academies and state scientists, funding agencies, and my colleagues down here in UCC, Imperial County, and or student interns. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ali, for your talk. I think it was very, very informative and insightful. Now, I'd like to invite anyone in the audience. I think we have time for about 1 to 3 questions. Anybody who has a question could ask Ali directly. Go ahead, Cameron.
Hi. My question has to do, can you hear me?
Yes,
Yeah,
please.
yeah.
My question has to do with tailwater. So when you brought that up, is that pertaining to like tailwater on farm, like for the individual user, or like tailwater at the end of like the irrigation district?
Good question. Thank you, Cameron. Yes, that was tailwater from on farm tailwater, which growers, they have a portable pump. They reuse that water for their field around, or the same, yeah.
And then is there tailwater, I don't know if what it'd be called, but I guess runoff capture that would be towards the tailwater systems? Like, I don't know if you get a lot of rain in your area over the winter.
No, we don't have rain, but this drainage canal are connected, and sometimes growers, they have, for example, 300 acres next to each other. So the tailwater goes to that drainage canal, and growers, they use it. Sometimes they send it to reservoir, which is more solid technology, but not every grower has that. Mostly they have portable tailwater. They don't have reservoir to send that water. But still,
okay.
there are about 20 growers, they have reservoir, and they send the tailwater from different fields to that reservoir.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else with a question? Okay. Oh, go ahead, tackle it.
Okay. Hi, Ali.
Hi.
With your work and also with high density planting and also my work and Gary's work, how do you see the avocado industry in San Diego? How do you see the sustainability or the future prospectus of the avocado? How much of your work and our work do you perceive that it would be helpful towards the sustainability of that industry?
Thank you, Ita, for the question. Still, we are talking about desert, but let's move on because San Diego is a water user from Colorado River. I think that's a great question. Even in the water availability and water cost is the major issue for the avocado growers. You already talked about a lot, during your talk economically and how it works and how the high density. With the high density, or measurement shows a higher water use per acre. We found about 5% higher water use when we go with a higher density. I think a higher density, even though can increase the water use, but can help our growers because per acre they can produce more a yield, and I think that can help our growers because the cost of production for avocado in the San Diego County or everywhere in Southern California is very high. If growers can reduce the cost or increase the production or increase the yield, I think it can help them with the higher sustainability. But still, I think is one issue in the future. I really don't know when it goes. But what can help our growers? If they go with a more efficient, irrigation technologies and better irrigation management, that's their solution. They can go with to use those tools to improve their efficiency and hopefully, I reported already about these to everyone. We found some of our growers, they apply a lot of water in avocado industry, more than 28% than crop needs, or the irrigation water needs on those. So that's huge. I think we can work on that to bring it down and improve it. If we do that, hopefully we'll go with the sustainable approach. Thank you for the question.
Okay, thank you.
Is there anyone else with a question? Okay.
Yeah, hi. Sorry.
You go ahead, Safik.
Yeah, Ali, I think you raised a very good point on the salinity, and I'm just curious what your thoughts are in terms of achieving both the water conservation goal as well as keeping the soil healthy.
That's a great question. That's the big concern. It's very interesting. Everyone is talking about water conservation. And I think we should, as I mentioned, is a very silent mode. It comes already started. With that, I think, even look at this, when we eliminate certain grass from the summer, so is it, some growers, of course, they plant it for some economic benefits, but again, it comes to the soil health, that's a cover crop. We are just eliminating that.
Yeah.
So what will happen? So we started a few things, at least I can talk about one, for sugar grass. I have a fund from Leafy Green Advisory Board. We do this with Michael Khan. He's doing in Salinas, I'm doing here. So we did evaluation this year and works well. I think we should recommend those to the growers, and I started to talk with Farm Bureau. So we can do sugar grass, but not for economic production, just as a cover crop. We use 6 inches to 7 inches of water, and the canopy, raised great, or the biomass was great. Just 3 inches to germinate sugar grass, and give it time to use the water is available from the previous vegetable crop in that specific phase. And it goes, I don't have the picture here, but I can, I have a presentation the next 2 weeks for the Leafy Green Board. The result is promising. I think we need to think about those things. Cover crop with the lowest amount of water use to make sure we don't lose, soil health. And we saw also less, salt accumulation on that specific field with the, cover crop. I think we need to be creative, but that's a hard time to go with innovative approaches.
Okay. Thank you for that reply, Ali. Is there anyone? I think we still have about 10 minutes to 1 o'clock. If anybody wants to ask a question, can go ahead. All right. As I wait, Ali, I have my own question to you. I know yes. You mentioned that in some instances, growers tend to apply more water than you would think they would need. What has been your experience with growers when it comes to working with sensors, moisture sensors?
This is a great question. Thank you for mentioning, because I can give you one story. This is really a story. I work with a grower, since I came to the valley, and I was working with him to adopt soil moisture sensors to do a better job management. In the beginning, we put some soil moisture sensors in his field, in alfalfa field. And then 6 months later, the grower came to me with this idea. He mentioned, Ali, I love these sensors. I said, wow, that's great. He mentioned, I told, why you love it. He mentioned, I love it because with these sensors, I can ensure I'm over-irrigating. This is a funny story, but very interesting story. I think we need to go for it, even if a growers has that perspective. And now after 6 years, these growers continuously use that sensors I put and never took it out, the 4 years. And now he has started to do a good management based on the soil moisture sensors we have in his field. I think these tools can help our growers, even in the beginning, a grower just can make sure he's over-irrigating, or she's over-irrigating. But at the end of the day, this is the tool can help our growers for irrigation management. I'm working with vegetable growers. They believe the most cost-effective tool for vegetables is soil moisture sensors. I think from crop to crop, growers, they have different perspective, but at the end of the day, it can help them perfectly. and we are working on those. I think we all need to work on that tool.
Okay, well, thank you for sharing that that experience.
Thank you.
Yeah, we have about 8 minutes. If anyone has a question, they can go ahead and ask. Okay. I don't know.
There was a question in the chat, Tobias.
There's a question in the
That's
chat?
That's a good question. The Sudan grass reduce. We see some, but not very significant. But or trial because we just germinated and just left it alone to the end, to before seeding. We see some lower salinity, but not effective. At least I cannot confirm Sudan grass has a significant impact on the salinity reduction. But it increased the soil health with the higher organic matter.
There's another question. It says, is the water used for salinity management considered beneficial use? I think from a soil health perspective.
Definitely, as I mentioned, because it attacks the productivity. And I showed you about the lower productivity with the onion field, at least a couple of experience we have, and for some other crops as well. So from that perspective, yes, we always consider excessive water for salt management as a beneficial water use. And that's why I did that research actually, because growers, they asked me, please do some research to show the district this is beneficial. And if we don't do it, we are losing productivity.
Okay, we have 3 other questions. I know time is running out. We have Kurt, you can go first, then Raji and Cameron.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Ali, I was curious about the if you had looked at all about the economic impact from those gopher strikes on the subsurface drip irrigation. Yeah, how that actually impacts these growers financially.
That's great. Kurt, it's not about the cost. Growers, because the hay price we have now, as I mentioned, is feasible. Growers reported about $45 to $80 per acre. This is what we did with Dan Putnam. Reported higher costs for controlling gopher issue, but it's not about that cost. It's about when the gopher comes and attack the system. Over time, growers, they lose their management, in that field. They cannot manage the irrigation system over time. And they look at it as a hassle. Always leaks and wet area, you cannot find it. You need to go with multiple approaches. And that's why growers, they see it as a hassle, some of them. It's not about the economics. I think economically, they can manage it. But they don't like to go through with that issues. I think if I'm a grower, perhaps I look at it the same way.
Okay, Raji, you could ask your question.
Yeah, hi. Ali, first of all, fantastic presentation. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Could you take us back to the slide that had alfalfa acreage on it? I just wanted to make sure I read it correctly. So the acreage for alfalfa actually went up over the last year.
You mean for
Imperial
Imperial? Yes, it shows about, by month, August 2023 compared to August 2022. 2 months.
Right. Sorry, go ahead.
No, we compare 2 months from this year to last year. And the data comes from IID, which they have the acreage.
I see. Thank you. I've been I've been working for all of 6 weeks now since the semester started on a life cycle assessment for alfalfa here in San Joaquin Valley. And much of the data I've reviewed only talks about the acreage going down. So this kind of caught my attention.
In the desert, yes, not in the desert. In California,
right.
Goes down, in the desert goes up.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yeah,
Thank you.
So I guess we'll have Cameron to close the questions. Cameron, go ahead, please.
Sure. It's connected to a prior one, so I can see how things like salinity management or alternative water use is considered beneficial for an individual grower. But is that concept being considered for people who are controlling or having a say in where water's going?
I didn't get your question. You mean
basically, like, I can see how salinity management could be beneficial for the grower, but I would assume they probably wouldn't do it if there weren't some way to help with that. So if the water managers don't consider it a benefit, then there might not be a way for them to actually utilize that if they don't get a kickback of any sort, or structured in a way where it makes it more doable for them to actually manage their salinity.
Great question. Thank you, Cameron. I think, that's a regional need now. It's not just about the farm, because the region, the irrigation district, they need to conserve that amount of water and contribute to the Colorado River basin. I think that's the major. It's not just now. I think that's a regional, even a national, I think, issue. They need to conserve, and they look at the water conservation as a must. Everyone as a must. Water manager and the district. That's a good question, because I remember, in the beginning, a couple of years ago, I came up with the idea of deficit irrigation to the region. When I brought it up, it's very interesting. The district didn't support me, the idea. They told we have this water, why we need to conserve it at that time. But today, they are helping this because the region needs as a must. And I think that's original. That's a great question. Thank you.
Well, thank you.
Okay, well, thank you. Thank you all for finding time to attend this meeting. And Ali, once again, thanks a lot for sharing your research work with us. And we look forward to seeing you all at our next webinar. Thank you all.
Thank you very much.
Bye. Bye. Yeah.